He was a lawyer and a judge from an Ohio political family. He was appointed governor of the Philippines by President McKinley and Secretary of War by President Roosevelt. He secured the Republican presidential nomination and won a decisive victory against William Jennings Bryan to succeed Roosevelt. As president, he sought to reduce tariffs and was hesitant to enact progressive reforms. His party became bitterly divided between progressives and conservatives. A frustrated Roosevelt challenged him when he sought renomination. When the former president's effort failed, Roosevelt formed a third party, dividing the vote and ensuring the election of Woodrow Wilson. After retiring from the presidency, he became a professor at Yale and finally realized his dream when he was appointed Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. He is our nation's 27th Chief Executive, William Howard Taft. Let's take a look on a map at some sites associated with William Howard Taft. Taft was born in Cincinnati, Ohio. His father, Alphonso Taft, was involved in politics. He was a diplomat. He also served as both Secretary of War and then Attorney General in the Grant administration. The house where Taft was born can be visited today and where he spent his childhood. It is the William Howard Taft National Historic Site. The house in Washington, where Taft later lived while he was Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, later became the Syrian embassy. The house is still there today. Of course, it's not open to the public. And Taft died there in 1930. He's buried in Arlington National Cemetery, of course, right across the river from Washington in Arlington, Virginia. Now let's take a look at some photographs of these sites. Now let's take a look at some books in my collection relating to the life and times of William Howard Taft. I actually don't have a biography of William Howard Taft. There's not a whole lot out there. I do have a biography of his wife, Helen. Many people know Helen as the person who initiated the planting of the cherry blossoms in Washington. Well, this book is by Carl Sferrazza Anthony, Nellie Taft, the unconventional First Lady of the Ragtime Era. A good account of her life and the Taft family. She lived until 1943. That book was published in 2006, the same year as this book. I do have a biography of Taft's opponent in the 1908 election, A Godly Hero, The Life of William Jennings Bryan by Michael Kazin. It's a good account of Bryan's life. Bryan, of course, was the Democratic nominee for president in 3 elections. He ran twice against William McKinley. He famously gave his Cross of Gold speech advocating free silver at the 1896 Democratic Convention and was unexpectedly nominated in response to that speech. He again won the nomination in 1900 and then in 1908. He served as Secretary of State under Woodrow Wilson and later became known for his role in the so-called Scopes Monkey trial. So quite a lot to talk about in his life, and that's a good overview of his life. Another thing that happened during this period was the shirtwaist factory fire in New York City in 1911, where 146 workers were killed during that fire because they were unable to get out of the building, and this led to a lot of reforms. This is a good account of it by David Von Drehl. It's called Triangle, The Fire That Changed America, and it was published in 2003. And lastly, I'll mention another book of an individual who was important in this era. It's a book about the social reformer Jane Addams. It's called Jane Addams, Spirit in Action by Louise W. Knight, and it was published in 2010. Our next episode will take a look at our nation's 28th president, Woodrow Wilson.